Hey guys, welcome to another episode of How to Watch a Movie as a Christian. My name's Riley.
I'm PJ.
And I'm Ben.
How to Watch Matilda 2022 as a Christian. Matilda is a new film put out by Netflix. Came out last year.
Well, it came out on Christmas last year.
On Christmas.
So it is kind of a 2023 movie.
Yeah, you could say that. That's definitely when I watched it.
I can.
It's obviously based on an old book by Roald Dahl, who is a British children's author, known most famously for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. What's your Roald Dahl experience? Do you like him?
Yeah, I mean, I watched Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory countless times as a kid. I only ever watched Matilda maybe once or twice.
The old one?
Yeah.
With the girl from the
and Danny
Miracle on
DeVito.
34th Street.
It just it was one of those movies that as a kid freaked me out, and then I just had this weird taste in my mind about it.
That's kind of typical Roald Dahl.
I feel the same.
Stories are like that.
Watched it as a kid. Watched Matilda. When confession, I didn't finish it. I'm sorry.
You didn't finish this movie
This
that
one.
we are currently
Yeah.
reviewing? Get out of here.
Wait, why?
I'm sorry.
How come?
Well, that's irrelevant. Don't ask me. But I was watching it with one of my housemates, and I said, "Is this the one where the girl can control stuff with her mind?"
Yeah.
Because I couldn't tell from the beginning. Yeah. But I remember thinking, "Yeah, that movie freaked me out when I was a kid. I didn't enjoy it."
Interesting. So this one is a musical based on the multiple award-winning musical from, I think, 10 or 20 years ago. I actually don't know when it came out.
It was like a decade ago.
Yeah. So it just came out. I watched it with all my kids, and it hit me hard in the feels, like weeping, tearing up. The little girl was so precious and kind of mousy, squeaky. She was like a normal little
cute.
girl. She didn't seem like an actor. Mm-hmm. And she's just
she
got
did
the
really well.
most cutest little... Why?
She's always kind of pouting too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, why didn't you
good point.
finish it?
Just because
Did you fall asleep?
Just because I was really tired, yeah. I wanted to go to bed.
Or you just didn't like it?
Well, I would have stayed up if I was really into it, but I just wasn't. Okay, I also don't really like musicals, but I think it does. I have to say, there's a difference between this movie was bad and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
This movie, I'm sure, was great. Musicals, obviously, people like them. It just didn't hit me. It didn't make me emotional. I mean, I was only half an hour in.
You.
No,
Yeah.
But it did look. It looked great. It was actually a little violent in its colors and stuff, but yeah, it was great. The song was really clever. That one that I listened to, and the alphabet one.
That was
catchy.
good.
It was very cute. I just don't really care. There's one musical. Is that true? That I know I like, and it's Hello Dolly.
Okay.
I really like that one.
So are both of you coming from that place of musicals little tough?
Not necessarily. Okay, this is interesting. I grew up on Disney Channel, right? So I actually do enjoy
I didn't know you were a child star.
High School Musical and Camp Rock. For whatever reasons, those hold a special place in my heart. But any other musicals outside of that, or even plays for that matter, I just have a hard time connecting with. I don't know why.
So it sounds like you've been poisoned.
Maybe.
High School
Yeah.
Musical is the standard.
I went to watch
That's
High School
horrible.
Musical
That's bad.
3 in theaters.
Oh
because
my
I wanted to.
goodness.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, that's.
But then also, I should say, I watched Dan Chazelle, was that his name? Whatever, who did La La Land.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually really liked La La Land.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about La La
It
Land.
created jazz.
What about
It created jazz.
La La Land created jazz? There
Oh
was
my
no jazz
gosh.
before.
Get out of my. That's no.
Thanks, Ryan.
Well, what about some of the most famous ones? Music Man, Singing in the Rain. What about Moulin Rouge, which is one of the more well-regarded modern ones?
I really appreciate them. I think they
Oh,
have such a
brother.
place, but they're just.
Oh my gosh.
What do you do with them? I don't want to watch.
I really
people sing.
appreciate them. That's like what you say to a girl before you break up with her.
It's exactly what I would say to a girl before I break up with her.
I really appreciate you.
No, even when I watch live musicals, which I've done several times, you can appreciate it. There's artistry in it, but I don't want to.
This
ever
is
again.
what you're making this the point of. I see how good it is. I'm not. It doesn't do anything for me. I don't
Just
like
don't.
it.
I'm just kind of coming to this right now, but it sort of begs the question, or at least conversation around, what about like original Disney Channel movies that incorporate singing and big, dance numbers and all that? Where does that fit in? Are those considered musicals?
That's a good question. Like High School Musical.
No, like I'm talking about like Beauty and the Beast. Would you consider those musicals?
Well, those are definitely musicals because, first of all,
'Cause then I like
I see what you're
musicals.
saying.
It's
So,
true.
like, you're pointing out a difference between that kind of musical and it's like embraces the genre, the music style is very bombastic, and there's dance numbers. And High School Musical, as an example, is like that, but the style of music is not really musical style. It's sort of pop music put into a movie.
Yeah.
Well, no, what I was going to say is that this one it feels like a stage musical.
Yeah.
And one thing that this musical does that some musicals do not do is when the characters start talking, start singing, you actually feel like the people on camera are actually singing. The way that the voice is mixed into the music, it feels diegetic. Anyone want to define diegetic for the audience?
I know what
We
it
all
means,
know.
but go ahead.
You're a good communicator,
Yeah.
though. You might be able to take the best
Diegetic,
step
of
at it.
course, meaning
Yeah.
Diegetic is a sound, it's a sound term that refers to a sound effect happening on screen.
On screen, yeah. Totally.
I was about to say.
Non-diegetic sound is special effect noises. Sort of like when the scary guy appears and you hear and it's more in the soundtrack.
Scary.
That's non-diegetic, right?
Yes, totally.
Okay. But what I'm saying is that these characters, they actually look and sound like they're actually singing. It seems like it was made by theater people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is just another reason why it was hard to connect with. I just
Okay.
makes me go,
So
me no like.
basically, you guys are saying that the genre that this movie falls in keeps me from connecting to it at a deep emotional level.
I guess
that-
so.
Yeah, it's a
that's
hurdle.
what I'm coming to, I think.
It would be a hurdle
Wow.
for me. For other people, it's an entryway. Total hurdle. It would take a lot for me to like get into that.
You know, jumping, dancing, throwing people. That's not your thing.
No.
That sounds too diegetic.
That's what I was gonna say.
Wow, I actually really did not know this about you guys. I wish I would have suggested a different movie.
Okay, yeah. Let's do what we do best. Let's talk themes.
Okay.
What do we got?
Themes of Matilda is Matilda's parents. Remember, the first song is "My mommy says I'm a miracle," right? And then her parents
do.
are like they hate her. My mommy
Yeah.
says I'm a naughty little girl.
Yeah.
You know, so her parents hate her. They wish she was a boy. They don't want her to exist. So she has bad parents. All right. So in an effort to cope with that, she escapes into storytelling. And so she then gets sent to school where you see the contrast of themes. Miss Honey, her teacher, is this amazing parental figure. But Madame Trunchbull over here is like domineering, almost dictatorial, like tyrant. And so she sings a song called "The Hammer," where the metaphor is, if you want to throw your hammer for your country, and the whole thing is, in order to win in life, you have to stay inside the lines, and the line are the rules, right? Order, right? No chaos, no freedom, no artistry, just order. So it's very tyrannical. But over here, there's Matilda coping with this. And she sings that song that says, to make it right, you have to put it right. And then she says, sometimes, though, you have to be a little bit naughty.
No, naughty.
Yeah. So the point is that she's wanting to go outside the lines in order to find what is right. But Madame Trunchbull represents, no, you got to stay inside the line. and Miss Honey, her teacher, represents kind of a better fate and better destiny. So by the end, Miss Honey adopts her, and she goes home to live with her.
Yeah, I remember that part.
I think that too, though, like, also is how I had such a hard time with it, because right off the bat, I couldn't connect with either of the characters, whether it be the parents or Matilda herself. It just felt so absurd that a parent would ever do or say anything even slightly close to what they were saying.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I could never.
But when it's Roald Dahl, though.
I understand.
It's crazy. It's all his stories are like that.
Yes, I get that. And that's great. But it's just, I know you have to suspend your belief for these types of things. But just right off the get-go, I was like, no. And then again, I said, no. Now they're singing, no.
Yeah.
You know, it's just hard for me to connect.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It is interesting, like what I was telling you, like you're like, watch this with your daughter, Jane. I thought, I don't think she would like that. I think she'd be really sensitive to like how mean the parents are. I mean, I felt like icky by it. So I don't know. It was really, really off-putting for some reason, right from the start.
Wow.
I see it all. I totally get why someone would love this movie. Everything I think was executed the way it should have been. It just wasn't my cup of tea, I guess.
Yeah.
So, I have other reasons apart from that it was a musical.
Oh,
why
let's hear it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we want to hear that.
Because it felt like it was obviously very grandiose and bombastic, like this man here just said, which I agree. It was. The set pieces were really cool. The costume design was really great. The color theory was all there. It was great. It was cool. I don't think it was a Netflix original, but it was.
It was produced by Netflix, so they always brand it that way.
Yeah.
But no,
whatever. Whatever the case, it felt very Netflix in that it felt like, cream of the crop, whatever. Great. But then, like, when I tried to get past the surface of all that, it just felt kind of, I don't know, like shallow. I didn't connect with the parents. I didn't really connect with Matilda. I didn't connect with, any of these kids. And then at the end of it, it all sort of just resolves really quickly. And I didn't feel, I don't know, I just didn't, none of it really connected with me. And I couldn't, like, getting past the surface of all the bombasticness of it all, I just didn't see really what was going on. Especially considering the first movie, which I think felt more grounded and made more sense. But maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was.
It sounds like a classic issue of like this genre musical with kids doing flips in the hallway and singing about their greatest desires.
Yeah.
It's just not
because I remember
your thing.
The first Matilda. I remember really specifically the scene where homeboy's eating the cake. And you just sort of sit there with him while he's eating this cake, and it just feels so, like, grueling. And I really felt like, just such despair. But in this one, it
becomes a huge set piece for
it's like
a
everyone's
song.
dancing, and it's all crazy. And it's like, I feel like it really took away from the despair of this kid having to eat this entire chocolate cake in front of all of his classmates.
I think they brought it back, though, when he gets sent to the chokey, and then they bring him back. And at the very end, he leads the last song where he's like, oh. Remember, he's got the mic.
Yeah. I got to finish
And then
this
he goes,
flick,
he sings, never again will she get the best of me.
Yeah.
Never
And then
again.
but that song is all about like revolting.
Yes.
Right. And it's almost like, obviously, Madame Trunchbull or whatever is wrong in the way that she's handling all of these students. But then she leaves, and the second she leaves, it's like, they go to chaos, and it's almost justified. It felt weird.
That is an interesting point. There is an aspect that I actually had that thought too, because at the very end, Trunchbull's been kicked out, and Miss Honey now leads the school. And so the helicopter's flying over the school, and you see how it is now. And there's like a carousel of horses, and it's painted all these different colors, and everyone's in the hallway sitting on the thing, coloring and painting in the hallway. And I had the thought of, okay, you've just gone to the other extreme. I would hate this school. Mm-hmm. You've just abandoned order for chaos. And I did think, like, okay, I don't know if the problem in our world today is that there are too many Madame Trunchbulls around. Do you know any Trunchbulls forcing everyone inside the lines? It seems more today that the problem is no one believes that there are boundaries for anything.
No one's throwing the hammer for their country.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so I had that thought too.
Yeah, it just felt weird. I felt like they were justifying chaos for the sake of control, but then it's like, well, I mean, there are issues there too. I don't know. It just felt kind of weird.
Is this a movie for children?
Oh, yeah.
Kids movie, we talked about. That's a good theme, and it's also touching on what is this conveying? What's the message? You know, your kids are singing these songs. What's going to go on inside their heads? How is
think
this going to
what-
express itself?
What goes inside in their heads is it's expressed in her first song where she says, if you do nothing, then you might as well be saying it's all right, but that's not right. So you need to put it right. And sometimes you have to be a little bit naughty. Now that ends up being not true. That actually the way to put it right is not to be naughty, but to have Miss Honey redeem her from her situation. So I think that there's a nuanced lesson where it's these kids revolting, but at the core of it, she is revolting. She's playing pranks on her dad and stuff like that. But remember at the very end, she takes the glue off of her dad's head and they have like a little moment of forgiveness, you know? And it's because there has been this external redeemer figure. Miss Honey has redeemed her situation. So yeah, you have to put things right, but not in a naughty way, in a loving way.
But I also agree with you in that it does kind of come to the conclusion of putting things right, which is the theme that stuck with me from the very first song. Like I remember her saying that and thinking, okay, yeah, that's what this movie is going to be about, and it was. And it did play out in that putting things right was not necessarily being naughty, but just enacting judgment or justice, I should say. And that's what happened. It was justice. It was things were made right in that they kicked Trunchbull out. And now Mrs. Honey is the new headmistress. And yes, it was justice. Things were right in the eyes of the movie, which, again, I agree they should be more leaning that way. But
Do you think that you compared this one to the old movie from the 90s, I think it was? Do you think that that movie got more to the heart of the characters and that this one turned it more into like a social movement type of a story?
yeah, I would say so. Because I remember even, too, the first one, even just the filmmaking of it, like, it made you feel, like, small with the kids. Like, even just the angles or the way that the parents interacted with Matilda in the first one made it not less so just, like, being harsh for the sake of being harsh, but more so, like, it symbolized, like, we're the parents. We know everything. He even says, like, literally in that when they're in the car shop, over like, I'm big, you're small, I'm right, you're wrong. And it's like you feel that with the way the whole thing was filmed.
Whereas this one, the parents were completely buffoons.
Exactly.
There was they weren't telling their daughter she knows nothing and we know everything. They were just idiots.
Yeah.
They were complete morons. And that is true. Like this one is, the two parents are just loony.
And then I felt no connection, obviously, which is what they were going for. But then at the end, they do connect briefly, and it felt like, why? There was nothing there. I mean, I can see Matilda being the bigger person, but there was no reason for the dad to be okay with everything, and even having the glue taken off his head.
He called her a girl for the first time in her
Yeah,
life.
it's like, why now? It just, to me, it didn't hit. It's just like there was nothing there for it to really hit like I think they wanted it to.
But then overall, you guys would say the music is like a buffer because musicals just aren't your thing.
There was a lot of music too.
A lot of music. Yes. True.
Yeah, the worst part about musicals is when it hits this part and you kind of forget it's a musical. It's just a movie, and then they just break out into a song. I mean, I might get some flack for this, but Les Mis, when they just start breaking out, I just couldn't help but laugh and point at the screen.
Okay, you're definitely like you're stepping outside the genre, and you can't really talk about the film because you're talking about the genre.
Yeah. No, I know. And
It's
I'm
like
wrong.
watching a sci-fi and going, "Oh, aliens."
Is it like that?
Well, right,
Is it
because
that
it's one of the.
Being that crazy?
No, I'm just pointing out the similarity. You're outside not the film. You're
Yeah.
outside the genre.
It's true. I'm not the person who should be sitting in this seat reviewing Matilda.
I
But
figured you both have daughters. It's like, come on,
Whoops.
guys.
again,
Let's watch Interstellar next.
yeah.
I'll watch that
Ooh.
with Joni.
Again, yeah, it didn't click with me, but what I saw was very enjoyable, and I would never have cried. And I love you for having wept during this movie.
Aww.
Sweetie.
Sweetie. My daughter is scared of feathers on the ground, so I don't think I can show her
Why?
this movie. I don't know. We were walking, and then she just sees a feather, and she runs to my leg and just grabs me so tight and says, "The feather's scary." Oh, I thought,
I mean, I am surprised at sometimes at what my kids like because Scout we watched Home Alone with, and she ran out of the room when they stepped on the ornaments.
And Jane and Walt, my kids, love that movie.
Really?
They laugh
That's
so hard
crazy.
at that.
It's interesting what kids like and what they can't handle.
It is interesting.
Like my kids hated Hereditary. This has been How to Watch Matilda as a Christian. We are Pacific Parable, and we will see you at church.